Mr. Surincourt, who had been minding their daughter and niece, said he rushed out to meet her and described how she was holding her neck when he found her. Her condition deteriorated en route to the Mater Hospital and she was declared dead from irreversible loss of brain function 9 days later. The lack of blood and oxygen being supplied to the brain as a result of damage to a major artery in the neck was found to be the cause of death.
It's incredibly tight in the Shannon by-election as counting enters its final hours. Security analyst Tom Clonan is the current leader, followed by Dublin's former Lord Mayor Hazel Chew of the Green Party. That's it for now. More in an hour.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Early birds catch the sun. Early bookers get the best summer prices with Ryanair.
Cold and frosty tomorrow morning. Top temperatures of 7 to 9 degrees Celsius in moderate north to northwest winds. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, for an effortless finish to your day. New Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
This is News Talk.
All right, you're welcome along. It's Thursdays Off the Ball. Nathan with you until 10 o'clock this evening. We've got John Giles coming up at 7:30, wrapping up the week on the Republic of Ireland. He'll be giving his thoughts on the performances of Stephen Kenny's side. After 8, John Myler will be looking ahead to the league hurling final Saturday evening. Thurles, big crowd expected for Cork against Waterford. Obviously keeping a very close eye on the Cork side. They got so close to an All-Ireland final back in 2018 under John Myler. So that's coming up after 8 o'clock. And then on the football show, Jonathan Wilson will be joining us. The draw for the 2022 World Cup finals takes place tomorrow. There's a FIFA Congress ongoing in Qatar, so we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the week that was in terms of the qualifiers and some of the sides that missed out, particularly in Africa. It was a very dramatic evening on Tuesday, and a whole lot more to come over the next 3 hours. We'd love your text. 53106 is the number, or you can get in touch on social media on @OffTheBall. Just follow any of our accounts and send us a message. Joe Molloy should be with us this evening. Joe.
Nathan, how are you?
I'm alright. Richie McCormack, good evening.
Nathan, how are you?
Thanks for giving us the night off last night, Richie.
You're very welcome.
Tough.
You know,
it was tough. We were doing important work. Really, really important work last night.
Were you doing golf geekly stuff, were you?
Listen, we may have had to go down to K Golf World at the K Club and play the back 9 of Augusta and then play the 17th at Sawgrass. But we were doing it in the name of our good Golf Weekly subscribers. We just had to get down there and meet and greet. You know how it is.
Oh no. So you right, okay. Like last night's show was good. I obviously don't think tonight will compete with it. But here was me thinking that I was doing it for altruistic reasons. And, you know, someone was sick or someone had caught the Rona and was out and had their feet laid up for a few days. But here you are, messing around in a simulator. That's lovely.
I'm not sure it's lovely. A stimulator.
Simulator.
I thought you said a stimulator. Though they could call it a stimulator. I'll tell you, when you're playing the back 9 of Augusta, it does feel a bit like a stimulator.
Good. Listen to yourself, man. Is this how you envisaged your life when you were like 17, 18? Is it?
Richie, is this how any of us imagined our lives when we were 17?
Can I just put my hands up and say no? 100% not. But even still, man, come on. Have a little bit of pride.
We were sick with the golf bug, Richie. We were sick, all right. Do you know what struck me, actually, Nathan? I was just thinking about it. I meant to say it to you. So, Peter, Laurie, Gary Murphy were there, regulars in the pod, as you know, Richie, as well. And the lads walk in, like Gary's 50 this year. Peter is 48. They stroll in now. They just look like your typical Irish middle-aged men. Just strolling in. We're all standing around. We're all chatting, very laid back. Peter in particular never strikes me as somebody who was that sporty. You know, just doesn't have the look of somebody who's that sporty. You know, he's tall, a little bit maybe long-limbed, gangly, kind of whatever. And it's amazing. We do the golf simulator. Me, Nathan, and Peter and Gary were playing the back 9 at Augusta on the simulator at K Golf World. And as soon as each of them stand up to the ball, it's like they're transformed. It's genuinely like they are 15 years younger than they are. And they go from just standing around like the rest of us. They wouldn't stand out to their whole body has this kind of intent over the ball. And then the golf swings are just incredible. Peter's in particular, the backswing is just beautiful. He's got these high hands. He's like Justin Thomas. It's the most elegant backswing. And we slag Peter all the time in the podcast, and he's disparaging of his own game. And then you watch him hit balls last night, and it was so impressive. And I found myself, I mean, after he had a few shots and we're waiting around, I found myself like looking at him. Like, not suddenly like starstruck by Peter Lorre, but just like reappraising him. Because I've just seen him on Zoom for the last 18 months, 2 years, just, his head, and we're slagging him and we're messing. I was just kind of like on, geez, you're like this world-class athlete in your own way. And you forget that about you, It's like they suddenly became kind of superheroes of a sort, Nathan. And led to some fairly painful reflections on our own golf game when you hit shots after them. Because, man, the big 30-yard right to left shot that we call a draw, turns out that's a hook. Their draws are like 3 yards right to left. So it was just very impressive. The two of them, I was like, my God, the talent.
It was a very quick reminder of exactly that, just how good they were, because maybe at times you can take it for granted. Like Peter Lorre was the European Tour's Rookie of the Year. Like, that's how good a golfer he was. He was in not even the top 1%, like the top 0.1%. Gary spent years and years out on tour keeping his card, like going close to winning tournaments, playing in major championships. And there's not a lesson in it in terms of how to play the game now, but you think the effort that we put into trying to hit the ball far, and here they are both nearing 50 and just casually stepping up and smashing a shot down 260, 270, 280 yards. It felt like no strain on the body whatsoever. So yeah, it's incredible to see it up close, that even still, just how good they are. And we may see it again because 50, you can go play seniors tour golf if you're into that sort of thing. And I think both of them may just have that little bit of a bug there that they might give it a go.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah.
We had a great night. We were.
Anna was great.
We were down in, now we did pull a fast one back. Well, I won't say we pulled a fast one back in November. We were due to do this night for the Golf Weekly listeners back in November, but it was at the height of COVID. We had to pull it probably 24 hours beforehand. It's an enclosed space, probably not the best spot to have 25 people at that stage. Obviously, myself and Joe and Fionn went down anyways that night and spent about 5 hours there. So we were back for a second time. So we've got a competition actually on the podcast this week where you can win an opportunity to go down and stay in the K Club and all of that. So all you got to do is get on to otbsports.com/golf weekly. Maybe you'll join us sometime, Richie.
I'm looking forward to my day in Lou for it, Nathan. Certainly am.
What you got for us this evening, Richie?
I feel guilty for starting with golf after all that nonsense, but yeah, we do start with golf. The Chevron Championship is underway, the first women's major of the year. Leona Maguire is 8 holes from home. She is currently 2 under par, and she is 3 shots off the current leader, Australia's Min Ji Lee. Stephanie Meadow doesn't tee off until 8:30 Irish time. It's also the opening day of the Valero Texas Open, a really kind of wild day for Rory McIlroy, pretty much as many bogeys as he has birdies almost. Rory McIlroy currently 1 under par. He's playing the last, which is actually the 9th hole. He started on the 10th there today. Well, Graham McDowell has played 1 to 18, and he's also playing the last tonight. He is 2 over par. Russell Knox is the clubhouse leader. The Scot shot a 65 today and is 7 under par. It's a mark he's been joined out on course by Denmark's Rasmus Højgaard, also on 7 under par. They in turn are 2 clear of the likes of Matt Kuchar and Luke List.
Rory has all sorts of ways of preparing for the Masters, and remember, this night next week the Masters is going to be underway, and we'll be getting excited about Rory potentially joining the most illustrious list in golf as a Grand Slam winner. But sometimes he likes to play a lot of golf in the build up to a major, sometimes he likes to take weeks off. He skipped the match play, which is the easiest money you can win all year, last week, decided to go and play in Texas and felt that this is the best way. But especially with Tiger back potentially, it feels as though in all the years that Rory's been chasing the career Grand Slam that this has been the most low-key, Joe.
Yeah, I think you're right, and probably because expectation isn't that high either. As Richie mentioned there, so many bogeys today, so many birdies as well. You just can't get away with the kind of mistakes he's in the habit now of making for far too long. And so I don't think this year, based on his form, which isn't terrible, we should stress, and he could have easily won in the Middle East, but I would say of any of the last 6-7 years where he's been going for the career Grand Slam, I'd say expectation is at its coolest this time around. Most people you speak to are not expecting Rory to do something here. Now, of course, he's Rory McIlroy, so he could surprise us very quickly and get off to a gallop and lead from the front. His last 3 years at Augusta have been his poorest of the last decade or so. And I guess it's hard to know what to expect from him at this stage. But we're back to some of the same fundamentals, Nathan. The big three for me: the putting. He needs to have a better putting week than he's liable to have. The wedge game has not improved. That's the biggest concern for me. The wedge game has not improved, and Augusta's all about precision. And then thirdly, this is less of a concrete point and just more of a personal observation. I think increasingly he's struggling to play his best golf when the pressure is on. And I think that's a more recent phenomenon, but obviously the pressure is going to be on at Augusta. So I don't hold out huge hope for him this year, whereas in previous years I would have felt he had a great chance.
Well, exactly, and listen, maybe that is somehow going to come together for McIlroy, that expectation is low. And I think it's the one thing you always said about McIlroy is he was the best driver out there, and the stats don't back that up at all now. And while he played well in Dubai, he has done little or nothing since he got to America in the warm-up tournament. So unless he can find something over the next couple of days, he probably isn't going to be among too many people's picks. But again, all he got to do is win that, and we look back in his entire career in a very different way. And anyways, we should be talking more about Leona Maguire this week, because it is the first major on the LPGA. She's made a decent start, and if we're talking about the most likely Irish major winner on tour this year, Leona Maguire is probably it.
Yeah, so really interested to see how she goes. She's just been trending in all the right kind of ways over the last year in particular, and the next natural step for her after winning on the LPGA Tour is to challenge for a major. Let's not put too much pressure on her and say she should win, but if she was to really be in the mix on a Sunday, that would be incredibly exciting. This is going to be on Sky Sports, more so than the Texas Open all week. And I suppose the other story, just to take a broader view for a moment, is Jin Young Ko, who's the world number one, hasn't finished outside the top 10 since last July. And she's won 5 times since July as well, 6 of her last 11 events. So she's utterly dominant. There's no Nelly Korda there. She's a blood clot, so she's been having treatment for that. So yeah, Leona Maguire absolutely will be watching, but Jin Young Ko, the world number one, is the big story this week. She's talking about winning the Grand Slam this year, which is confident, Nathan.
Sure is. Leona Maguire playing with Jessica Korda this week, and every interview she ever does, you get the sense Leona Maguire just wants to take down the two Kordas at every possible opportunity. So it's a nice pairing for her as well over the first couple of rounds. The Newsround brought to you with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Where are we going next, Richie?
We will go to the Women's Six Nations. Ireland head coach Greg McWilliams naming an unchanged starting 15 for Saturday's Women's Six Nations game away to France. BlackRock's Christy Haney could earn a first cap off the bench in Toulouse, while McWilliams has made minimal changes. His French counterpart Annick Jairo has taken the opposite approach. She's made 7 switches from last week's win over Italy, 3 in the pack, 4 among the backs. France may be strong favourites for Saturday's game, but McWilliams says the result won't derail their progress.
No, unfortunately, the clip isn't working of Greg McWilliams at the moment. But yesterday we did the Six Nations show, and we got a full preview of the match, and obviously an unchanged squad there as well. Coming up on the football show, by the way, Jonathan Wilson is going to be talking to us. The World Cup draw is on tomorrow, and we look on and somewhat enviously, I think, of the footballing side of things. I made the point to Jonathan that maybe if there was a World Cup to miss, that this was the one in Qatar. There is Congress taking place at the moment as well, and it's been fascinating following it throughout the day. So the Norwegian Football Federation president, Lisa Klaveness, upset the consensus at Congress, where she was extremely critical of Qatar and FIFA's role in the awarding of the World Cup to Qatar, saying in 2010 World Cups were awarded in unacceptable ways with unacceptable consequences. Human rights, equality were not cared for. Democracy, the core interests of football, weren't in the starting 11. These basic rights were pressured onto the field as substitutes. FIFA has addressed these issues, but there is still a long way to go, made up and talked about migrant workers and the families of those who died, that they need to be cared for. There should be no room when it comes to hosting World Cups for employers that don't secure the safety of workers, no room for hosts who cannot host the women game, who cannot legally guarantee the safety and respect of the LGBTQ community. So really powerful stuff, which was followed straight away by the General Secretary of the Honduran FA, Jose Ernesto Mejia, who said it wasn't the right forum or the right moment to make such remarks, which obviously begs the question, when is the right moment or to make such remarks? And then the Secretary General of the Delivery Committee, Hassan El Touadi, defended what Qatar has been doing, saying 12 years of continuous work, and ended by saying that the president of the Norwegian FA, Lisa Klaveness, should educate herself on what's going on in Qatar. Jonathan Wilson made a good point when we were recording him earlier, Joe, that even from a basic PR point of view, you would have expected that Qatar were ready for these sort of statements, these sort of questions, But what Gareth Southgate said, which was rather tame earlier in the week about Qatar, what's been said today, they're coming out fighting and aren't going to be taking any criticism at all, it seems, between now and December.
Yeah. Well, I'm not really surprised at that. I mean, if politics of late has taught us anything, it's that it's quite effective to argue the case even when you're fairly obviously lying, and just muddy the waters to such an extent that you create some doubt in the minds of anybody who's listening to these arguments. It's been very dispiriting, the whole experience, to watch, one, the outright corruption, which has been well documented, involved in securing this coming World Cup and the last World Cup. Just outright corruption, which, like I said, is bad enough in and of itself. But then the human rights issue emerged very quickly. The workers' rights issue emerged very quickly. It was covered extensively in the media, and it seemed all to no great avail, no great improvement. And we've just trundled on for the last however many years. I've been doing pieces on Qatar workers' rights for at least 5, 6, 7 years. At least The Guardian doing big pieces. And the improvements have only been marginal. And there's been, outrageous claims on the Qataris' part about the number of deaths, like really outrageous claims, and FIFA have done very little, and it's all because, frankly, there's money to be made. So the whole experience has been very distasteful, and I don't really know what FIFA have learned from the whole thing. I really wouldn't have any great faith that we wouldn't see the whole thing repeated again in the next 8 years somehow. No,
they'll find a way to find the money, which is the number one target for FIFA. Richie, you've news on Congress, and Gianni Infantino is going to be around for quite a while, it seems.
Yeah, unfortunately, the FIFA president has confirmed he will stand for re-election at next year's Congress. He has been in the role since 2016 after succeeding Sepp Blatter, who was impeached, of course, at the time. 52-year-old Infantino previously served as UEFA's Secretary General before moving to World Football's governing body. As you mentioned there, the president of the Norwegian FA used Congress to deliver a withering attack on FIFA. Lisa Klaveness raised the issue of migrant worker deaths and human rights abuses in Qatar ahead of tomorrow's draw for the finals. Norway have been at the forefront of protests against the tournament being staged there, and Klaveness says that energy must be used by FIFA when assessing future bids.
I think, like everything else, we had really good support from Dave Nucifora, from the likes of Paul O'Connell and John Fogarty, who helped out my coaches and did a lot of work on our prep as well. So to have their support is great.
Having a couple of technical issues at the moment with the clips, that is obviously not the clip that Richie wanted to play, so we might just leave them.
If we play them all, that was Greg McWilliams. So if we just keep going, and we know
we will get there eventually.
It's like that sort of quiz you play with your kids where you have to answer the previous question.
Yeah, we'll hear the Norwegian FA next, but let's see what the throw is.
So that's basically brought you up to date with what happened at Congress today, and we'll talk more about that on the football show. The Republic of Ireland women's team have a huge game coming up in under 2 weeks now. They're going to be in Gothenburg to play Sweden. Vera Pauw's named her squad, Richie?
She has, yeah. London City Lionesses midfielder Lily Agg has been named in a Republic of Ireland squad for the first time. A 28-year-old midfielder. She is qualifying to a Cork-born grandmother and among a panel of 27 summoned for that World Cup qualifier away to Sweden on April 12th. Vera Pauw had to contend with a spate of injuries when naming this squad. It's quite a lengthy absentee list. Diane Caldwell, Savannah McCarthy, Niamh Farrelly, Emily Whelan, Aoife Colville and Saoirse Noonan are all going to miss the trip to Gothenburg.
Yeah, Savannah McCarthy out for a considerable period with a bad knee injury, who had started all the games so far on the left of that back three. Diane Caldwell would have been the natural replacement, is also missing. So Vera Pauw is either going to have to change tactics, which I can't imagine, or go further down the list and find somebody to step in alongside Niamh Fahey and Louise Quinn in the heart of the defence. It's a big squad. Maybe it's the opportunity that they're going to... there's no real excuses for not performing against Sweden, certainly to Ireland's level. Sweden are one of, if not the best team in the world right now, so you can't go there expecting to win. But they had the Pinatar Cup, Richie, where they had a couple of weeks together. I think they're going to get a good 10 days before the Sweden game, which perhaps is why she has that squad of 27 for just one match.
Yeah, we've seen in the past that having extended periods of time with which to work with the squads actually does work in their favour, and Pauw can implement the game plan, and especially for a task as challenging as Sweden. I mean, we saw what they're capable of the last World Cup. We've seen previously, obviously, in Tala, what they're capable of, and they're going to be no easily toppling over in Gothenburg. So the more time that Pau has to work with this squad, the more time she has to assess the players that are available to her, the best plan of attack she can put forward for this game. But again, trying to concentrate on potentially winning a playoff has got to be the priority in this one, winning the games beyond that Sweden one.
If you thought the Nations League was complicated, Joe, the playoffs for the World Cup are unbelievably convoluted, and we'll probably have to start thinking about them over the next few weeks. Katie McCabe going to be a key part of that Ireland side, playing tonight in the Champions League.
She is, yeah, and they need her in the last 18 minutes or so in Germany. Arsenal are trailing Wolfsburg by 1-0 tonight, and the Women's Super League side are now 2-1 down on aggregate. Jill Verd has scored for Wolfsburg tonight to put that tie in their favour. 2-1, as I say, on aggregate at the moment, 1-0 on the night. Later, Juventus take a 2-1 first leg advantage away to the 7-time champions Lyon. That one kicks off at 8 o'clock.
A message in from Jim in Dunboyne. I'm going to be boycotting this World Cup. Will not watch, read or bet on the games. I love football, especially the gossip and the banter with the other fans, but this is a bridge too far. Like the devil saying hell is cool this time of the year. You'll feel better if you don't get involved. Will many people boycott the World Cup? Will many people say, I am not going to watch this? One of the most enjoyable months normally for sports fans every 4 years. Do you think many people, Joe, will say, actually, instead of calling on the players to do something, I'm going to do something even though it won't make any great difference in the grand scheme of things, for my own sense that I'm going to step away from this?
No, of course not. I mean, television figures will be record breaking, as they are every World Cup. You know, it's the reality. It would make a hell of a difference if we all boycotted watching it. I mean, good luck trying to coordinate and enforce that. You know, so no, I mean, I commend Jim and everything, but he'll be one of very, very, very few, I would think.
We've John Myler coming up after 8 o'clock. He's going to be looking ahead to the hurling final, Cork-Waterford. 1998, the last time Cork won a hurling league title. We also just touched on what's going on the football side of things. His view is that, you know, the players should just go and play the game wherever they need to go and play the game. But it's a big night, Richie, for this. We could well end up in that sort of Newbridge or nowhere standoff, because it does seem as though that the Cork football management and players, they ain't going to Killarney.
Yeah, Munster Council decision, of course, last night to stage that football semi-final in Killarney, but the Cork players and officials are meeting this evening to discuss their options following that Munster Council decision. The game originally set for Páirc Uí Chaoimh, but of course the stadium won't be available, sure, why would it? And Páirc Uí Rinn was then deemed unsuitable due to its capacity, so it's off to Killarney for the moment anyway for this football semi-final.
What do you think, Joe? How far should the Cork footballers and management push this?
Yeah, I don't know, really. I mean, I've seen arguments made that even though this is just a horrendous prospect for Cork GAA to have reached this point, it would be one of the quickest ways out of debt, and therefore that money could be, instead of paying off interest and going towards the debt over the next number of years, could be ploughed into the improvement of games across the county. So, there is merit in that, you know. There is something to be said for that. The real issue here is obviously what a mess they got themselves into with Páirc Uí Chaoimh. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if what the mood in the dressing room is, if they are the ones really driving this, to what extent the Cork County Board will sit them down and say, look, this is why this would be really, really good if we could do this. This is the financial situation. I kind of, there's a media ban at the moment, so it's hard to know what the mood is in the dressing room. Like, you remember with Newbridge or Nowhere, that was such a united group, and Cian O'Neill was doing an interview in the 6-1, and it was clear that county board and players and management were all aligned on that one. Whereas here, this is kind of a more interesting situation, because you will have people there in the room, be it officials or players, saying, yeah, look, this is obviously, it's ridiculous that we're in this situation, but for the betterment of Cork over the next decade, you know, Ed coming and playing his songs brings in a fair few quid, and that gets us moving in the right direction. I don't know what your read is.
Well, as John Myler said, Cork needs Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran needs Cork, and Cork needs Ed Sheeran to pay off the debt. The question is whether they can get it to Páirc Uí Chaoimh or not, and there seems to be varying reports as to what sort of capacity they could have at Páirc Uí Chaoimh and would it meet the demand. Now, part of you as a Cork player would say, whether it's 9,500, 15,000 at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, you're playing arguably the best team in the country right now. You know, Saturday night, red hot atmosphere. Cork football isn't in a great place. This is our only real opportunity. Bring them into the lines then of beating them, rather than going down to Killarney, which I can't imagine Killarney's going to be full, half full for Cork coming to town when Kerry have grander ambitions. Maybe it will, but money talks in this case, and you can understand the Munster Council wanting to get as many people in, as much revenue. But if you're a Cork footballer, your best chance of beating Kerry is playing it in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in front of a full house of Cork supporters. So at the same time, you know, if you're a Kerry player, you're thinking, these guys really don't want to come down here. These guys really don't fancy this trip.
I mean, there could be a thing as well. They did it for the last couple of years as well. Was it for Munster finals where there was work ongoing at one of the grounds where they played 2 in a row in one ground and then 2 in a row the following year? So in a sense, they tried to
doing this year, kind of. Yeah, they're gonna do 2 in a row in Páirc Uí Chaoimh after this year, provided obviously that they do go to Fitzgerald Stadium for the semi-final.
Oh, are they? Well then, if they're going to do 2 in a row in Páirc Uí Chaoimh next year, maybe just get on with it then. No.
I would think so. The main issue is, like, I know you're saying, and John Molloy was saying it there, and Cork said, is that they need these gigs, they need the Ed Sheeran gigs. They have to surely find a way to be able to do both. I mean, and use the stadium for what it's actually used for.
This is the bit I cannot understand, Richie. Like that I know Ed Sheeran has a touring schedule and can only come at certain times, but surely you have weeks of the year that you say, doesn't matter who's coming to town, you cannot have a gig in Páirc Uí Chaoimh that weekend.
Yeah, like it would make sense. It's a stadium that was built for GAA purposes, and I know they have to get it out of debt quick, and that debt is only accumulating, and the depreciation on the place is only growing, etc., etc. Especially judging by the figures that they released last year. But like, they have to actually play bloody games in it, and meaningful games in it, because that's what's going to actually be a more steady, regular and revenue generator for it. Not the hope that Ed Sheeran or Bruce Springsteen or whomever is going to be coming every year, or that somebody come every year. You need to use it for its actual purpose. You need to use it preferably for those dual purposes, and then that's when you're swimming in cash, not using one or the other.
I presume they will get to that point though, but in this case, they just couldn't say no. You know, ultimately they will absolutely prioritise the GAA, but not this year. I presume that I would hope. I mean, I doubt we're going to be in this situation in 2 and 3 and 4 years, but it seems like this year it's take the cash when the cash is on the go, and that's where they are.
Yeah, if anything develops on that over the course of the evening between now and 10, we'll let you know as soon as it happens. We got to leave it there for the news round. Richie, thank you as always.
Cheers, Nathan.
Joe, enjoy the weekend.
Cheers, lads. See ya.
So we've Jonathan Wilson coming up on the football show. John Myler, as I say, after 8 o'clock on the hurling. And up next we have got John Giles. But right now it's time for the cash machine.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's Cash Machine.
So there was no winner of the cash machine today, so we're heading for a rollover.